everyone, welcome back to Drawn by Annie channel. This is me, Annie, and I will be drawing for you today. Grab your tea, coffee and snacks and let's dive into today's video. So today I am actually sketching outside of my home studio. Today I am visiting one of the cafes that I like to draw at. I decided to change some environment, so that's my way to kind of fight this art block thing, because if you watch my previous videos, I've been speaking a lot about art block and being overwhelmed and, being stuck sort of thing with my creativity. So today I decided to try and fix that, so I went out for sketching. So of course I asked for permission from staff and I sat in the corner table so nobody would actually have to worry about being on the video, because I respect people's privacy and stuff. But it has been a nice change of environment for me, because I live in a gated community and it's not really reachable place like public transport wise, and I don't drive myself, so I often spend all my time being at home or inside the community. So when I'm going out to city, it's actually pretty exciting because it's like a big change of my everyday routine, and I get to see things and do things and see people, and maybe have some coffee or tea outside and maybe some nice food. Yeah, come and enjoy some drawing session with me. I like to go to draw somewhere outside, sitting in a cafe or maybe a park or like a library or something. I used to go out more often when I was living in a smaller city before moving to this new country. Still, I kind of miss those days where I could actually go very often, and now I can only pretty much go outside inside the community. So the weather is too hot right now and I can barely spend any time outside. I can maybe spend a few hours like right before sunset because I cannot bear super hot weather. Sitting today in a cafe feels very refreshing, and I can drink some matcha latte made with almond milk and some ice cubes, and I'm loving it. Oh, fun fact about me, I have a lactose intolerance. So all my drinks that come with milk is usually with some sort of vegan drink, like almond or coconut or soy, but most often I'm using almond milk and sweetened. I miss drinking some cow milk drinks like coffee with milk, but I barely remember the taste from the times that I was working as a barista. This cafe that I'm visiting today kind of reminds me of the times that I've been working as a barista, by the way. Like, it had the similar vibe, and it was like a small cafe that was owned by a family, so it was not like a big corporation soulless thing, even though I've also tried working in one of those and I didn't really like it. But then I ended up in this smaller cafe. They had like maybe 2 or 3 branches in total, only because they were super successful and they made a very well designed business plan. So they ended up opening a few more spots in different cities. So I worked in one of them and it was a very fun time for me, by the way. I had a lot of fun going to work and my colleagues were very fun to hang around with, but it also brought same challenges as most of the service working places bring. Like, when you're serving people, oftentimes people are not treating you as a human being but as I don't know who. I hope you're not one of them. Be nice to service people. They are people too, and they're trying to make money for a living, and they're trying to survive this harsh world, so please be nice to everybody. I remember there were some fun times and fun situations occurring with both my colleagues and clients, and a lot of people were coming on an everyday basis and we basically knew them by their names and their faces, and as soon as we saw them coming into the cafe, we were like, okay, you can start preparing this drink. Rarely they changed their choices, and it was okay as well, because the management, the owners of the cafe, they were okay with us also drinking coffee because we weren't drinking as much. And I mean, it was a really nice place to work at, even with all the challenges and rudeness that we had to take care of occasionally. But in general, it was a very nice place. It was then when I was working in that place, I started to draw outside in cafes, because oftentimes on my lunch break, I took my sketchbook and I just went on a break and I was drawing outside, sitting with my coffee or my lunch or both, and I enjoyed my time. So after that, I started doing that not only during my work day, but also on my weekdays sometimes. So that became this sort of artsy ritual for me, and I was trying to catch the inspiration and enjoy the vibes, you know. And especially when there was like a rainy day, it was very nice to come for a warm cafe, have like a cup of tea with some nice food, and enjoy the sketchbook session. I wanted to dive into the same vibe with today's session and I'm really enjoying the process. This is not the first time that I come here to sketch, so local staff already knows me. I think that's why they were kind to let me put out my recording setup and, you know, do the video inside, because usually it's not the case, especially here in this country. They are very harsh on people that are trying to record publicly. I don't know, for some reason it's just forbidden by law, or so they say. So yeah, I'm very careful with where and what I record outside, especially if it goes on social media. So as I was sitting there and thinking about what to draw, I did a few starting and warming up sketches in my sketchbook, and then I came up with an idea that I wanted to draw a fan art of a character from the ongoing show Apothecary Diaries, which is Mao Mao. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the character, and she's very nice and funny. I decided to kind of shoot two birds with one bullet, let's say, if you know what I mean. And my idea is to make a fan art and explore some of the style differences. Like, I wanted to try and mimic the original anime style and mangaka style. So I did one page for the studying case. So I had this reference from the show. It's like a shot of Mao Mao staring at the watcher with some simple background. So I do the fan art, trying to come as close as possible to the original art, and then I'm redrawing the same shot on the same sketchbook spread with my own style, and I wanted to explore how different would that be. So I wanted to also see what is different about my style, because sometimes I cannot really tell, even for myself, what is defining my style. So this type of art and fan art exploring is actually very nice to experiment and explore the tools that you're using, and maybe see for yourself how much different your own style is from someone else's style, or like a typical anime or typical whatever style, you know. So yeah, I starting with a sketch. So today in the cafe, I don't have a lot of tools with me. I just have the basic set of pencil and pens and some eraser, and I'm just sketching out something for later use and for later coloring in my studio. And later on in part 2 and 3, I think I'm going to do the line art and coloring for each of the sketches in different videos. So stay tuned for part 2 and 3, so we can see the outcome of this little artsy experiment and decide which art style you prefer most, and if you like my art style or the original one. So for the original sketch, I am just trying to catch the proportions of the face and proportions of the head to the shoulders, and I want to keep it as close as possible as the original manga style. And since I rarely do copy someone else's art, I kind of try to keep the proportions or like large forms and shapes in my head when I'm doing that, and I'm trying to build the proportions with the help of like guidelines that I also do. Like I construct the whole picture from scratch, but since I have a reference right before me, I can see exactly how big of a head I want it to be and how wide the shoulders should be, and the shape of her hair and the shape of her eyes, as well as her nose and mouth and everything. So I'm just trying to start with bigger shapes and then gradually go into smaller and smaller details. And a general rule of style that applies to most of nowadays modern animes is the clean look, as I call it. So basically you use the least amount colors as possible, even though like the design has quite a big of a color palette for Mao Mao's design. In this specific shot there's just 4 basic colors basically, so I know that I'm gonna use that in the future when I'm going to color it. But also something that applies to something that I'm doing right now is a clean sketch. So their line art is very simple and thin, so they don't really have any line weight in animes usually. I'm guessing this is because of the animation tools and specifics of production. You cannot really waste a lot of time for the line art, so they're just going with most simple and fastest drawing production. So that's what I'm also trying to replicate in my sketches. But later on, when I'm going to do my style or my version of the same shot, I am going to free up myself from these rules of the anime. Well, at least partly, because I think line weight is a huge part of my style and I really spend a lot of time doing my line art. So yeah, later on I'm going to spend more time probably on my version of the sketch, even though I will still try to keep it as simple as possible to make it look like as if it was also from an anime, but in my style. I don't know if you maybe have seen these trends going on in art community where people are trying to redraw the popular shots from animes, like the Sailor Moon meme, for example. That's kind of what I'm trying to do here. So I have a shot from anime and then I'm trying to copy the original and also do the same with my own art style. And hopefully I will learn a lot from this study because that's my main goal, to have fun and to learn and study stuff. There's also a very nice thing about drawing in an environment that is not your work desk or like your room, is you have to be very specific with what you take with you, especially if you're drawing like me in traditional medium. I cannot really apply that for the digital artists because literally they have like a tablet drawing program and they can have every tool out there and every brush and every texture look and whatever, so they don't get this opportunity to actually put themselves into tight frames and try to explore their creativity with only specific tools, or at least not in the same way. I mean, they still can do that, but they don't have to be going anywhere to do that. But if you're a traditional medium user, you have to really know what you're doing, or at least have an intention in every tool that you take, because if you want to take something with you, you have to know that you will use that. That's the first thing. Then you also have to be specific with color palette, and you kind of have to know some basics of the color theory and also be very specific and intentional about the techniques you're going to use. So for example, if I'm going to make like a pencil sketch, I would not need to bring any pens with me, because why would I if I'm just doing the pencil sketch? On the other hand, if I want to make like a colored artwork or something, I either need to be very limited on my color palette and really use the colors that would contrast each other or like complement each other, because I cannot bring my whole studio with me, because I have a large collection of markers and I need to know exactly what I'm going to use, or like think about it beforehand at least. Or maybe there's also another thing you can do, is to take a color palette that you are very comfortable to work with, but that wouldn't be very beneficial in terms of like studying and exploring art, because you already know how to use this palette. So I would rather use something that would put a little bit of challenge on my art journey, at least something that I could explore. For example, I could use different hue. If I usually draw in yellow and orange colors, I would go with some cold colors like blue maybe, or greens. That would give me an opportunity to either think about some things that can be drawn with these colors, or on the other hand, we can also try to draw something that you're used to but give it a color that you don't usually use, which can give it a surprisingly new look. So that's also something to look into. I really encourage you to try out different things, and you may be surprised with the results, because sometimes we just don't think about mixing one thing with the other until we actually try it. So yeah, just go ahead and try and have fun with it. Be brave and be courageous, my art warrior. There are art battles out there that we have to have, all of us. And then we can come out mightier artists from out of them. Anyway, I am done with my sketches here, and stay tuned for the part 2 and 3 where I'm going to color these nice sketches. Thank you for sticking up with me in this nice cozy cafe sketching session. I was really glad to have you with me, and I hope you enjoyed the drawing. Let's meet again soon, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye!